हरे कृष्णा। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome back to the fourth day of this course, Rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti Part 2. So, last 3 days we have been discussing on this one topic, and finally we rushed yesterday to complete the last section of this topic. So, I will try to make up for it by doing a small recap before we move on to the next long session about the 64 Angas of Bhakti, the 64 limbs of devotional service. So we are in the second wave of the eastern section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is talking about sadhana bhakti. And in this we discussed various themes, and the last theme that we have been discussing for the last 3 days is duties expected of a qualified practitioner. In this theme we discussed, is a devotee, is a practicing Vaidhi sadhana bhakta or a Vaidhi sadhaka, is he expected to perform the varnashram duties as described in the Dharma Shastras? So in response, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ananushthanato dosho bhaktiyanganam prajayate na karmanam akaranad esha bhakti adhikarinam nishiddha acharato daivat prayaschittam tu na uchitam iti Vaishnava Shastranam rahasyam tadvidam matam. To summarize, Rupa Goswami mentioned that it is a fault for a Vaidhi sadhaka to not perform the essential limbs of bhakti, but it is not a fault if he fails to perform the varnashram duties. If by chance he commits a forbidden activity, then he need not resort to the karmakandiya prayaschitta. Bhakti alone acts as the prayaschitta. These are the 4 essential points that came out as the summary of this discussion. Then we tried to understand, what does it mean to not perform varnashram duties? Does it literally mean that he will not perform any varnashram obligations? In that sense, does it mean that a devotee is irresponsible or ungrateful? So in this theme, we also discuss, what did Krishna really mean when he told Arjuna, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja? Because it seemed like Arjuna did not follow this rule, because he perfectly fulfilled his varna dharma and ashrama dharma. So what exactly does this Sarvadharman parityajya mean? So we tried to understand this based on Raghunath Das Goswami's teachings, where he mentioned, it means a change of paradigm. A change of paradigm from dharma sankalpo, dharmasya sankalpo, adharmasya varjanam to anukulyasya sankalpo, pratikulyasya varjanam. That's what he mentioned. Na dharmam kuru, na adharmam kuru. Vraje Radha Krishna prachura paricharyam ihatanu. Start thinking in terms of what will please Radha and Krishna, what will please the Guru. So in this context, we discussed about the 3 kinds of people, the materialist, the devotee, and the dharmic person. All 3 of them may perform the same activity, but they can function under 3 different paradigms. Dharmasya sankalpo, adharmasya varjanam. This is the dharmic person. Raga sankalpo, dvesha varjanam. This is the materialist. Anukulyasya sankalpo, pratikulyasya varjanam. This is the bhakta. And the bhakta performs his activities based on the bhakti shastras, the dharmic person based on the dharma shastras, and a materialist decision is based on his own experience. So in this way, we saw through this small Venn diagram that how you could have a significant overlap of activities which could be performed under 2 different paradigms, let's say varnashram and bhakti. or it could even be a materialistic activity, varnashram and bhakti. Three people could perform the same activity under three different paradigms. And as we saw that there is actually a significant overlap between the activities which could be performed under the realm of varnashram and bhakti. So therefore, we cannot look at the activities and come to a conclusion. We have to try to understand the paradigm under which that person is functioning. Unless we know that, just by looking at the activity, we cannot conclude. Then we are dependent on the commentaries of the acharyas to understand under what paradigm that particular personality acted. And in the case of Arjuna, clearly Srila Prabhupada and the other Vaishnava acharyas indicate that Arjuna did follow this instruction, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, because he fought the battle for the pleasure of Krishna, not because he was a Kshatriya. And he took care of his family for the pleasure of Krishna because they were all Vaishnavas and not just because he was a Grihastha. So therefore he seemingly engaged in his Varna Dharma and Ashrama Dharma, but the consideration was not Dharmasya Sankalpo, Adharmasya Varjanam, but the consideration was Anukulyasya Sankalpo, Pratikulyasya Varjanam. And then we tried to understand what is the basis of this Varnashram system. We understood Vishnu worship, Samsiddhir Haritoshanam, Vishwaksena Katasuyah Na Utpadeyed Yadiratim Shramayeva Hi Kevalam. Based on these verses, we understood that the essence of Varnashram system, the very basis, the deep root, the center of that Varnashram system is worship of Vishnu. And we tried to understand that there could be different classes of people who worship Vishnu but are situated under different realms of this Varnashram system. We broadly tried to divide them into 7 categories. The Shuddha Bhakta at the centermost, the Jnana Mishra Bhakta, Yoga Mishra Bhakta and the Karma Mishra Bhakta within the middle circle, and the Jnana Yogi, Karma Yogi and the Ashtanga Yogi, they form the periphery of the circle. This we understood. And we tried to understand, do the Shastras really recommend that all these 7 categories of people within this Varnashram system actually perform their Varnashram duties as prescribed by the Dharma Shastras? We tried to understand based on the recommendation of Bhagavad Gita that the Jnana Yogi and the Jnana Mishra Bhakta need not. The Ashtanga Yogi and the Yoga Mishra Bhakta, only in the beginning stages for purification of their heart, they are expected to perform the Varnashram duties. And the Karma Mishra Bhakta and the Karma Yogi, they have to perform their Varnashram duties. And the pure devotee or the person qualified for practicing pure devotional service, he need not. This is what we tried to understand based on these various verses that we saw from Bhagavad Gita, ending with Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, which is the instruction given to a devotee. So even though these 7 categories of people based on their worship of Vishnu do fall within the Varnashram system, but not all 7 are expected to perform their Varnashram duties as prescribed in the Dharma Shastras. This is the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, this is the teaching of Bhagavatam. That is very clear. So therefore, why do these 2 category of people, the Karma Mishra Bhaktas and the Karma Yogis, why are they expected to perform their Varnashram duties? What do the Varnashram duties do? And also the Ashtanga Yogis or the Yoga Mishra Bhaktas in their Yoga Rurukshu stage, in the beginning stage, why are they expected to perform their Varnashram duties? We tried to understand that it is because it purifies the heart of material desires. Because the prerequisite to perform Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi in Ashtanga Yoga or the Jnana Yoga, because the Jnana Yoga involves meditation on the Atma, which requires a purified heart, and Ashtanga Yoga in the later stages requires meditation on the Paramatma, which also requires a purified heart. And the means of purification is actually Nishkama Karma Yoga, which involves practice of one's Varnashram duties. in a detached way. For that purpose, for purification of heart, performance of varnashram duties is recommended for some class of people. Now the question is, a devotee's heart is not, at least a sadhaka's heart, a Vaidhi sadhaka's heart, especially in the early stages of practice, is definitely not clear of material desires. So if he neglects to perform the varnashram duties, then how is his heart going to be purified? We had an elaborate discussion on this. We saw that the very first benefit of practicing Uttama Bhakti or Sadhana Bhakti is Kleshagni, and Kleshagni involves destruction of material desires, destruction of material vasanas. Bhakti accomplishes it. The same we saw Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sikshashtakam, he mentioned. And also we had an elaborate discussion on this topic, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvat Shantim Nigacchati, where Krishna is willing to take personal responsibility of cleansing the heart of that devotee who has surrendered unto his lotus feet. So therefore, from these verses and verses like Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yejana Paryupasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham, these are all various promises that Krishna gives, that I will take care of his, I will take care of purifying his heart, you don't worry. So therefore, based on this, we tried to understand that a devotee, a Vaidhi sadhaka, need not resort to performing the varnashram prescribed duties for purification of heart. Actually, the heart gets purified by practice of bhakti only. Bhakti only purifies. So to summarize, again, we will try to find out if these four essential points that we have seen, Rupa Goswami, the last section that we saw was Rupa Goswami giving proof for these 4 points, that how a bhakta need not, a Vaidhi sadhaka, he is at fault for not performing the essential limbs of bhakti, but he is not at fault for neglecting to perform his varnashram duties or for non-performance of his varnashram duties. And if he commits a forbidden activity by chance, then he need not perform the karmakandiya prayaschitta, and only bhakti acts as the atonement. So we saw this Svesve Adhikare Yanishta Saguna Parikirtitaha. From this verse he indicated that everyone has an adhikar and a duty is according to one's adhikar. A bhakti adhikari is expected to perform his duties, a karma adhikari is expected to perform his duties, and a jnana adhikari is expected to perform his duties. So therefore a bhakti adhikari's duty is Navada Bhakti or the 64 limbs. And a karma adhikari's duties are according to the dharma shastras. Perform your varna dharma and ashrama dharma. And a jnana yogi's duties are according to the jnana shastras. Then swapada moolam bhajata priyasya, this verse indicates that how even if a devotee by mistake performs a forbidden activity, Krishna present within the heart of the devotee cleanses the heart of the devotee. So therefore bhakti acts as the atonement and he need not perform any separate prayaschitta for atoning for that. Then this verse, Tasmad Madbhakti Yuktasya Yogino Vai Madatmanah Na Jnanam Nacha Vairagyam Prayashreyo Bhavediha. This indicates that how a devotee need not try to perform perfect his spiritual practice by performing jnana, vairagya or varnashram duties and any of these things. Only bhakti is sufficient to attain perfection. Then the next verse also from the 11th canto, Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata matkata shravanadauva shraddha yavanna jayate, indicates till what situation should a devotee, should a person continue to perform his varnashram prescribed duties. Clearly Krishna says, till he develops faith in the process of bhakti. The moment he develops faith in the process of bhakti, he can give up his varnashram duties. That is very clearly mentioned here. And also the famous verse, Tyakta Swadharmam Charanam Bhujam Harer, very clearly indicates that performance of varnashram duties is not necessary for a person who is trying to perfect his bhakti. Rather, if he even if he gives it up, there is no loss. But for a person who is qualified for karma, if he does not perform bhakti, then he does not get any result like that. Then this again another verse from the Uddhav Gita. Agyayaiva gunan doshan mayadishtan apiswakan dharman santyajya yassarvan mam bhajet satu sattama. It is not that a devotee is unaware of the glories of performing varnashram duties. It is not that the devotee is unaware of the sin that can be accrued by neglecting to perform varnashram duties. Still, on the higher order of Krishna, Sarvadharman Parityajya, on that order of Krishna, a devotee chooses to perform only the activities of devotional service. And Krishna says, Satu Sattama, he has perfectly understood my instruction and he is very dear to me. He is the most dear to me, Krishna says. And also, this verse, Deva Rishi Bhutaptananam Pitranam, just like a human being is indebted to all these personalities, but all these personalities, because they derive their power from Krishna, by worship of Krishna, one's rina or debt to all these other personalities are at once taken care. So one need not separately try to please each of these personalities. This is the next verse that indicates. So therefore, a person qualified for bhakti need perform only devotional limbs, no other thing is needed. And then finally, we saw Sarvadharman Parityajya, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. And in this we saw the elaborate commentaries by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan and Srila Prabhupada, where clearly it is mentioned that a person qualified for bhakti need not perform his varnashram prescribed duties. The elaborate purport, we will not go into it again. So this we have already covered. And then we went to the last section, which is very important section, because whatever we have discussed till now may seem little contradictory to the some of the statements made by our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. Especially in the later stage of his life, the last 1 or 2 years, he really emphasized establishing the varnashram. He said 50% of my mission is to establish varnashram. He did say this, so how do we understand this? So this is where we rushed. Okay. So as we saw yesterday, the whole of ISKCON, or a major portion of ISKCON think tank is involved in trying to understand what is this that Prabhupada wanted to establish. Of course, there are multifarious opinions on this. Different people feel different things about varnashram. So, but whatever it may be, we should be firmly convinced that Prabhupada would not have wanted to establish the act of varnashram or the varnashram system in a way that is not recommended by Rupa Goswami. So Prabhupada's teachings would be in line with the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita and Srila Rupa Goswami. So this we have to be convinced, because any Sampradaya Acharya would not present an opinion that is contrary to the opinion of the previous past Acharyas and the basic Sampradaya Granthas. So this we have to be convinced, and with this premise we should try to understand what exactly Prabhupada wanted to establish. So with this premise we will try to see. I could think of 3 possible reasons what exactly Prabhupada wanted to establish, or 3 possible opinions with respect to what Prabhupada would have wanted to establish through establishing varnashram, or what exactly he wanted to establish when he said, I want to establish varnashram. So this is what we have been trying to understand. We tried to understand this yesterday also. One of the options is that establishing Varnashram institution as a stepping stone for the outsiders to take up to Shuddha Bhakti. So actually, if you see whether this Varnashram system, as we saw, two kinds of people can take up to Bhakti. We have already seen that to take up to Bhakti, one's prior pious life or an impious life does not act as an impediment. It purely depends on Sukriti. And Sukriti anyone can get. A Vaishnava can feel compassion seeing the Prime Minister of India also, and he can feel compassion seeing a beggar in the street also. He can feel compassion seeing a very pious Brahmana not worshipping Vishnu also, and he can feel compassion seeing the most sinful person spending all his time in the liquor bar also. So a Vaishnava's compassion is said to be ahaituki kripa. It is not sahaituki kripa. Sahaituki kripa means you see some good qualities and therefore you feel compassionate. Whereas a true Vaishnava's compassion is said to be ahaituki kripa. It is not dependent on the presence or absence of good qualities in that particular person. So therefore he naturally feels compassionate. The only thing that he sees is, oh, he does not have Krishna. He does not have Krishna Bhakti. Let me try to give it to him. That is the mood of a Vaishnava. So having said that, whether a person has a prior background of Varnashram or if he does not have a prior background of Varnashram, it doesn't matter. A Vaishnava's compassion can flow towards him. But having said that, if a person who has a prior history of practicing Varnashram, there is a very good chance that his heart is fairly clean, because by practice of Varnashram, the unfavorable sinful desires, sinful inclinations would be fairly cleansed of his heart. Therefore, after taking up to Bhakti, the amount of work that Bhakti has to do to cleanse his heart would be minimal. So the Anartha Nivritti stage can be very quickly crossed if one takes up to Bhakti with a prior background of Varnashram. So in that way, if we have a system of Varnashram for the outsiders before, then whenever that seed of devotion is sown in their heart, at that time, after that sprouts and becomes a creeper, the Anartha Nivritti stage can be very quickly passed through, because they have lived a very dharmic life and their heart is fairly cleansed of the gross anarthas at least. So in this way, it acts as a bridge for that person to not take up to Bhakti, but having taken up to Bhakti, to progress fast. So this we tried to understand based on this conversation, morning walk conversation between His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, 1976, February 9th. So Prabhupada, we will again go through some of the sections of this. Prabhupada said, no, ISKCON is not going to be a social reformer, but as far as possible we can help. Our main business is how to make everyone Krishna conscious. That is our main business. We cannot take up, but if possible, we can take up all the system of Varnashram, if possible. Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, if Varnashram is neglected, then how can there be proper functioning of society? Prabhupada said, no. If the society chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra seriously, then it is all right. Never mind whatever is done. It doesn't matter. Papi tapi jata chilo hariname uddharilo. This is the power of Hari Sankirtan. If one is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, all benefit is there. But as long as bodily concept of life is there, we require Varnashram. Otherwise, there is no necessity. Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, yes. Then Prabhupada continues. He quotes from Ramananda Rai Samvad. So you must have read the 8th chapter of Madhya Leela, Ramananda Samvad. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks Ramananda Rai, what is the perfection of life? Ramananda Rai says, it is Varnashram. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected it. Prabhupada corrects him. He says, no, not rejected. But it is not very important. He said, eho bahya, this is external. So the Varnashram dharma, he says, is a good help, undoubtedly. But it is not important for Krishna consciousness. Which means, the insiders need not necessarily think in terms of, am I a Vaishya, am I a Kshatriya, what do the Dharma Shastras say, should I practice these things according to my Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma. Prabhupada apparently does not recommend such a thing for insiders, and certainly the scriptures and Srila Rupa Goswami do not agree with that. That would be contradicting the basic tenet of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is also based on Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So therefore, a person who even has Komala Shraddha, very weak faith in the practice of pure devotional service, he need not think about practicing his Varna Dharma and Ashrama Dharma according to the Dharma Shastras. He should be trained to think in terms of Anukulyasa Sankalpo, Pratikulyasa Varjanam. What is favorable for my bhakti and what is unfavorable for my bhakti. So that's what Prabhupada is telling. So the Varnashram Dharma is a good help, undoubtedly, but it is not important for Krishna consciousness. Meaning, for the practitioners of Krishna consciousness, you need not introduce this Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma like that. But for common populace, if such a system is there, good. You will get good people who have fairly clean hearts taking up to Krishna consciousness. That is very good. Otherwise, Prabhupada says, how could I start this movement in the Western country? There was no Varnashram Dharma. But that did not hamper my movement. Now people are surprised how these people have become such great devotees. He is talking about his own disciples. Now people are surprised how these people could become such great devotees. So it was not based on Varnashram Dharma. So if you say, so here Varnashram Dharma, Prabhupada is using it in terms of practice of Varnashram duties. Of course, and neither was the social system based on Varnashram also was not established at that point. So Prabhupada says, because the whole movement is spiritual, it starts from the spiritual platform. Aham Brahmasmi, Jivera Swaruphoy, Krishnera Nityadas. Then Prabhupada shows, look, here is a gap. There are two options. You can cross this gap by building a bridge and walking over the bridge, or you can just jump over it if you can. And Prabhupada says, this Varnashram Dharma, Sannyas, Varnatyaga, Karmatyaga, these are only different steps, Prabhupada says, but Bhakti is like the elevator. And these are like gradual steps. If someone can take up to Bhakti directly, then they should take it up. They need not first be trained to practice their Varnashram Dharma and then only they can take up to Bhakti. Then that would make Bhakti Sahaituki. Actually, the ability of Bhakti to purify is much more faster than the ability of Varnashram to purify the heart of that person. Shvadopi Sadyah Savanaya Kalpate. Quickly, very quickly, immediately, such a person can progress to the level of being purified as a Brahmana. So therefore, the first thing that Prabhupada does seem to indicate through at least this, there are various other room conversations, morning walks, Prabhupada's purports that we could discuss, but then that would be a whole 7-day seminar in itself. But we don't have time for that. So we will just see this. So this one reason is to make a viable, make a step or a bridge for the outsiders to take up to Krishna consciousness in future. For that purpose, he wanted the Varnashram system for the outsiders, where the outsiders could function, they could perform their Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma perfectly, and whenever a pure devotee comes, sows the seed of devotion, they can accept pure devotional service. This is one understanding. The second is that accepting the occupational duties as for Brahmana, Patan Patan Yajan Yajan Dana Pratigraha. Understanding the Vedic scriptures, teaching them, and performing the duties of yagya and or sankirtan yagya and other such yagyas, and teaching them, teaching to others. And dana pratigraha, accepting something in charity and giving in charity. These 6 occupations are simple occupations. For a Kshatriya, then he can Shauryam Tejo Daksham Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam Ishvara Bhavascha Shatram Karma Swabhavajam. So these are the protection, courage, these are the qualities and occupations of a Kshatriya. He will not run away from the battlefield. And for Vaishya, Krishi Goraksha Vanijyam, taking care of cows, taking care of agricultural lands, and whatever you get out of the cows and land, you trade it off and make. These are simple ways by which Vaishyas can live. So, and Shudra is assist the other 3 orders. Paricharyayatmakam karma Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam. So, in this way, accept the Shastra presented occupational duties of Varnashram in the mood of Anukulyasya Sankalpa. Oh, it is favorable for practice of bhakti. If these kind of occupational duties are performed by our devotees, their mind will be peaceful, they can practice devotional service nicely. In that mood, accepting the occupational duties as a viable alternative for the modern Ugra Karma lifestyle that we see. This Prabhupada explains in this 7th canto, 14th chapter purport, 10th verse purport. Prabhupada says, these are the different occupational duties by which men should earn their livelihood. And in this way, human society should be simple. Prabhupada says, at the present moment, everyone is engaged in this technological development. This is Ugra Karma or extremely severe endeavor. And what is the result of Ugra Karma? Agitation of mind. Mind will get agitated. So therefore, people are engaged in all these kinds of degraded activities like slaughterhouses, breweries, nightclubs and all these things. And in all these activities, mostly householders are involved. Therefore, it is advised that a householder should not engage in these kind of Ugra Karma. So then how they should be engaged? For that you accept the occupations that are recommended in the scriptures according to various Varna and Ashrama. So the devotees could choose from one or more of these occupations and live a life peacefully so that they can practice Krishna consciousness. So in this way, the occupational duties are accepted in the mood of Anukulyasya Sankalpa as a viable alternative for the Ugra Karma lifestyle that is presented by the modern age. And then he says, in this, only the Grihasthas should be engaged in this way. The Brahmacharis, Vanaprasthas and Sannyasis, they should be just focused in practicing core devotional activities. And the Grihasthas, by performing these kind of non-Ugra Karma professions, can accumulate some wealth and offer it in charity for the upkeep of the other 3 ashramas. Like that. So, like that Prabhupada mentions. This is, Prabhupada says, this is Daivi Varnashram, and one of the objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to establish this Daiva Varnashram, but not to encourage so-called Varnashram without scientifically organized endeavor of human society. So, as a social setup where these kind of occupations can be performed by the devotees in order to have a lifestyle that is conducive for Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada wanted this to happen. So, which means borrow the occupational duties and follow one of these occupational duties. And the third thing is Why should Krishna consciousness movement be restricted only to those who are Anyabhilashita Shunyam? Can a person with material desires worship Krishna or not? Prabhupada and all the Vaishnava Parampara and Bhagavatam is very clear. Yes, they can. But is the current ISKCON mindset, the current ISKCON understanding of who is an ISKCON devotee, does it, if you understand, it means without any material desires. So it is more or less like, if you get that faith only, then you can be accepted as a bona fide ISKCON member. But what about people who may have material desires, who may have desire for bhukti or mukti or siddhi? How would you, or as we saw of the 7 categories, now only one category, those practitioners of Shuddha Bhakti, in the strictest sense, if you see, current ISKCON in one sense accepts only them as core members. Others most likely are accepted in the form of donors. You don't call them devotees, you call them donors actually. So, in one sense they may feel, they may not feel a sense of belonging to our society. But the Varnashram system has all these 7 categories of people. So how would you make them feel, and they all these 7 category of people worship Krishna or Vishnu. So how to make them feel that you are a part of the family? Maybe that is what Prabhupada, that is one of the purposes what Prabhupada wanted, what Prabhupada meant by wanting to establish a Varnashram system. How would you make these people also feel at home? You would not necessarily be judged or criticized for wanting to worship Krishna to attain a material benefit. You would not necessarily be judged or criticized for wanting to worship Krishna with a desire for mukti. You would not necessarily be judged or criticized for wanting to worship Krishna with a desire for some siddhis. So how are you going to incorporate them? Basically, akama sarvakamova mokshakama udaradihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Are you just going to tell them you are a fallen devotee or you are not even a devotee because you have all these material desires? Is this what we are going to tell them after 50 years, after 100 years of ISKCON? Or are we going to embrace them and make them feel it's okay, as long as you are worshipping Vishnu, it is fine, and allow the association to slowly transform their heart, and maybe over a period of time, by the association of well-intentioned, mature, affectionate devotees, maybe slowly they will gain that necessary sukriti by which they can shift from being mixed devotees to practitioners of pure devotional service. So maybe that is what Prabhupada wanted to establish in the name of Varnashram. So in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama. Only he can award liberation, including Sayujya Mukti or merging in the impersonal Brahmajyoti, he says. Therefore, one who desires to merge in the impersonal Brahmajyoti, such a person must worship Lord Krishna by Bhakti Yoga. That is what is mentioned here. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. So Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. And Prabhupada quotes Etavan Sankhya Yoga Abhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janmalabha Parapumsa Mante Narayana Smriti. All these Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis and Bhakti Yogis, they can worship. Ultimately, their ultimate perfection can come only by worshipping Krishna. So therefore Prabhupada says, everyone must therefore seriously take up to the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. So now my point is, this is actually, you are starting to consider the other 6 categories of people who are not pure devotees, but they are willing to perform some element of bhakti. How are we going to make ISKCON relevant for them? How such people can feel ISKCON, how such people can feel a sense of belonging within the realm of ISKCON? Because we always say that Prabhupada built a house in which the whole world can live. But the whole world is not necessarily filled with pure devotees. It is filled with different kinds of mixed devotees. So how are we going to make them feel at home? This is probably what Prabhupada wanted to establish, and that is what Prabhupada is indicating here in this purport. So these are the three possibilities, or a combination of all three possibilities, or there could be unlimited more possibilities. I have not done a very exhaustive research on this, but what Prabhupada meant by wanting to establish Varnashram. And these three are at least in line with the teachings of Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, teachings of Krishna in either Uddhava Gita or Bhagavad Gita. But any other explanation which would actually contradict with the conclusions given by Srila Rupa Goswami and Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, in my opinion, cannot be accepted. Because a Sampradaya Acharya would not necessarily contradict the previous Acharya. Under rare circumstances, they can, under emergency situations. But as a generic principle, one should understand that what Prabhupada wanted to establish would be in line with the teachings of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, because that is our basic Abhideya Grantha. We cannot contradict our basic Abhideya Grantha. We all are called Rupanugas primarily based on Rupa Goswami's compilation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is considered the magnum opus of our whole Sampradaya. Magnum opus creation of our whole Sampradaya. Therefore, that teaching cannot be contradicted. So we have to understand Prabhupada's wanting to establish the Varnashram system in such a way that it does not contradict this teaching. So in this way I would like to conclude on this topic. We would no longer touch this topic because we have elaborately discussed on this. Now we will move on to a very important section, practical devotional service. What do we do? The 64 limbs of devotional service, the Angas of Bhakti. So, Srila Rupa Goswami starts this description by telling, Hari Bhakti Vilasesya Bhakter Angani Lakshashah Kintu Tani Prasiddhani Nirdishyante Yatamati. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Hari Bhakti Vilase, in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Bhakter Angani Lakshashah. Srila Sanatana Goswami has presented lakhs and lakhs of limbs of devotional service. Kintu, but Tani Prasiddhani, of them the most important limbs, Nirdishyante. I will explain. Yatamati, as per my judgment. He does not want Bhakti Rasam Sindhu to be another Hari Bhakti Vilas, elaborating these things in detail, because primarily Rupa Goswami wanted to compile this book as a manual for Bhakti Rasa and not just Bhakti. So therefore he does not go into great elaboration like in Hari Bhakti Vilas, explaining all the limbs in great detail. He does not do that. So of the 64 limbs, the first 20 limbs are called the door to devotional service, of which the first 10 are do's and the second 10 are don'ts. So we will try to quickly run over the 64 limbs, and then we will try to see some examples, some proofs for these 64 limbs, how they are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vaishnava Granthas. So the very first limb is Adau Guru Padashraya, accepting the lotus feet of a Guru, accepting the shelter of a Guru. In fact, as soon as a person develops this faith in the practice of bhakti, the symptom of that faith, one of the first symptoms of that faith is that person thinks, oh, I need to accept a guru to progress in bhakti. So that is the primary symptom of a person who accepts, who has developed that pure devotional faith. And then one approaches a guru, Adav Guru Padashraya, taking shelter of the lotus feet of a guru. After taking shelter of the lotus feet of a guru, what follows? Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam, accepting Diksha and accepting Shiksha. So what is Diksha? Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat Kuryat Papasya Sanshayam, the Shastras say. Diksha means, Di refers to Divyam Jnanam, Ksha refers to Kuryat Papasya Sanshayam. The moment the devotee takes shelter of the lotus feet of a guru, he starts getting the transcendental knowledge and Divyam Jnanam, Kuryat Papasya Sanshayam, and all is, like we say that the guru accepts all the karmas of the disciple. So in this way, the guru accepts. Then the third limb is, he has received something extremely valuable, Diksha and Siksha. So how should the disciple reciprocate? Vishrambena Guror Seva, service to Guru with respect, that has to be performed. That is the third limb. The fourth limb is Sadhu Vartma Anuvartanam, following the rules of scriptures as approved by the Acharyas. Sadhu Vartma. So the understanding of this Sadhu Vartma changes. So first we may start with, we should not accept the teachings of the outside world. We can accept the teachings of the outside world for our profession, but for our spiritual development, we cannot accept what this person says, that person says. We have to accept those as pramana, that which our acharyas say, which is Vedic scriptures. So when we are talking about materialistic scriptures and Vedic scriptures, our pramana is Vedic scriptures. When we are talking about Vaishnava or non-Vaishnava scriptures, our pramana is Vaishnava scriptures. When we are talking about Gaudiya Vaishnava and non-Gaudiya Vaishnava, because if you have a specific goal, if you are trying to follow not just a Vaishnava path, but the Vaishnava path that has been chalked out by Srila Prabhupada and his predecessor Acharyas, then we talk about the scriptures which have been recommended by our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas. That is Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Madhurya Kadamini. These are the books that our Acharyas have given us. And any other grantha like Srimad Bhagavatam which our Acharyas have commented upon. Because we should understand and we should firmly trust that we do not have the capacity to directly read the book and understand. We need to borrow the vision, the proper eyesight to see and understand those scriptures based on the commentaries of our Acharyas. So those books which our Gaudiya Acharyas have commented, those books are bona fide, because we will get the right understanding. Otherwise we would not have the right eyes to understand. We would not even know whether that book is relevant for practicing devotees or not, whether that particular instruction is meant for a devotee or not. So that is very important. It is just like a recipe. So add a little salt to it. So you may say, the first thing is, this is recipe for what? That I don't know, but it just says add a little salt to it. So then that is not reasonable. We should know when a Shastra is talking about a particular injunction, we should know whom it is meant for. We cannot randomly take. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja, Krishna says. And then the same Krishna told Arjuna later, previously in the second chapter, that your duty is to perform your dharma. What is that verse? 2.47, he says that karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbur mate sangostu akarmani. So he established, oh Arjuna, your adhikar is karma, therefore you perform karma, he says. So therefore we should try to know how do we resolve when we say, oh, you can say that, oh, this instruction is also for me. Krishna clearly says, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So I have to practice it. Oh, Krishna also says, sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. I have to practice it. Why Krishna says? No, that is not the way of understanding scriptures. Srila Jiva Goswami says, Purva apara anurodena konvarto abhimato bhavet iti adyam uhanam tarka shushka tarkam tu varjayet. So one should understand the context. Who spoke? To whom did he speak? It is an instruction for whom? It is an instruction for whom? Just like if a doctor says, otherwise it is like copying the answer sheet of a chemistry, of a person who is writing chemistry exam while you have physics question paper with you. Sometimes they do make 10th standard and 11th standard exams are parallelly happening. Next to every 10th standard boy, you will have 11th standard boy, so that they cannot mutually copy from each other. But if one thinks that anyway he is also writing, I am also writing, let me copy whatever he writes. No, he has a specific question paper according to his qualification. You have a specific question paper according to your qualification. So we should know this. And who will reveal this? Our acharyas will only reveal. So therefore, sadhu vartma anuvartanam, following the rules of the scriptures as approved by the acharyas. Fifth is saddharma pracha. Saddharma pracha means we should not go to a spiritual master and ask, Maharaj, what do you think of the COVID crisis? So you think India's COVID numbers, when it will peak and when it will start coming down? These are not the kind of inquiries. We don't need a spiritual master for that. So this we have to ask a doctor who has some experience in either community medicine, or someone who has worked on epidemic diseases, or someone who is a health statistician. So you can ask these questions to such a person instead of asking the spiritual master. What we should ask the spiritual master is saddharma pricha. We should inquire about the real duties of life. As a devotee, what is my duty? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to avoid? These are the inquiries which are bona fide for a devotee. Then, sixth thing, bhogadityaga krishnasya hetave. One should try to consciously avoid sense gratification for pleasing Krishna. Why? Because we consider that, oh, this duration of time that I am utilizing in sense gratification, I might as well use it in Krishna's service. If I have time for personal entertainment, why not use that time to entertain Krishna? And if we entertain Krishna, will Krishna deprive us of our own entertainment? No. So therefore, bhogadityaga krishnasya hetavi. Slowly but steadily trying to give up our non-Krishna conscious attachments for the pleasure of Krishna. This is, at least one should be convinced that I should endeavor in this direction. This is called as bhogadityaga krishnasya hetave. This is the sixth limb of bhakti. Seventh limb. Nivaso dvarakadau va gangaderapi sannidau. One should aspire to live in a place which has a very strong spiritual ambience. And especially the dhams have very strong spiritual ambience. Or the temples have very strong spiritual ambience. And if that is not possible, make your own home into a temple, a very powerful place, a powerfully, spiritually vibrant place. Establish an altar, you can welcome the deities, serve the deities in a very affectionate way. In that way, the house becomes Goloka. Jedina grihe bhajana deki grihete Goloka bhai. Charana Sidhu Dekiya Ganga Sukana Sima Pai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Jedina Grihe Bhajana Deki Grihete Goloka Bai. Whenever I see very affectionate worship of their lordships happening in my home, I see that this house is non-different from Goloka Vrindavan. In that case, that is Nivaso Dvarakadauva Gangaderapi Sannidau. The house becomes Dwaraka. The house becomes Vrindavan. The house becomes Goloka. Grihete Goloka Bai. Charana Sidhu Dekiya Ganga Sukana Sima Pai. Whenever I see Ganga flowing nearby, I remember, oh, this is the foot wash of Krishna, and I become very happy. My joy knows no bounds seeing the flowing Ganga or Yamuna, understanding that this is the foot wash of my dear Lord. This is the seventh limb. Vyavahareshu sarveshu yavad artha anuvartita. Accepting only what is needed to dealing with body, which means not engage in over accumulation of things which fall within the category of luxury. Of course, what is a luxury, what is a necessity, constantly we are redefining luxury and necessity in terms of months or years. I remember during my college days, I used to be very thankful that we have the opportunity to call our parents, and we used to have these ISD booths. I remember. During my school days, even they were not there. They were there, but we didn't have access. We could only write to our parents. I went to a boarding school, and there we could only write to our parents. Inland letters, postcards, and we had so much appreciation for that. That blue color of inland, that was so attractive. Or the yellow color of the postcard, 15 paise postcard, or it eventually became 25 paise postcard. We used to eagerly look forward for those letters. At that time, we used to consider letter was a luxury. To hear from from our parents about what is happening at home, we thought it was luxury. Then emails came, and in my college I used to appreciate ISD booths. We used to stand in line and wait for half an hour to make a 3-minute, 4-minute call back home, weekly once. Then came cell phones. Cell phones became necessity. Then after cell phones, now smartphones are absolute necessity. Who told that smartphones are a luxury? Can anyone live without a smartphone? So now we are constantly mindlessly redefining what is luxury and what is necessity. This has to stop. At some point we have to stop this, and we have to start thinking, what do I need to maintain a simple lifestyle so that I can think of Krishna? So this is the eighth limb. Keeping one's lifestyle simple enough so that one need not endeavor too much to acquire material opulence to retain that luxury, that luxurious position. Ninth limb is called as Harivasara Sammano. Harivasara Sammano means, Samman means to give respect. Harivasara, Vasara means days. Days which are connected to Lord Hari. Observing Ekadashi Vrata or Janmashtami, observing the days of Janmashtami, Ekadashi, all these things. As it is mentioned in the same bhajan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also talks about this. Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula Bhakata Seva Parama Siddhi Prema Latikara Moola Madhava Titi Bhakti Janani Jatane Palana Kori. So he says Madhava Titi Bhakti Janani. So he says Ekadashi, days like Ekadashi or Janmashtami, they are very close to the heart of Krishna. So Jatane Palana Kori. If one very carefully and with great joy and with great eagerness trying to minimize non-Krishna conscious activities to the maximum and try to engage all the time in Krishna conscious activities, in this way we please Krishna. This is the ninth limb. Dhatri Ashwattadi Gauravam. Dhatri Ashwattadi Gauravam means giving respect to the Amalaki, Ashwatta and other items which are related to Krishna. Ashwatta, Ashwattamenam Suviruda Moolam. Ashwatta is sometimes it's called a banyan tree, but actually it is a peepal tree. And a peepal tree is considered to be very close to Krishna. Krishna also mentions in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as Ashwatta as one of his vibhutis, he says. And the Amalaki tree is also very close to Krishna. Tulsi is also very close to Krishna. So in this way, giving respect to those items or things which are very dear to Krishna. These are the first 10 limbs which are the do's, the 10 do's. So we are already come to the end of the time. So tomorrow we will start with the 10 don'ts, and then we will see the other 44 limbs, and then we will see some proofs for each of these limbs very quickly, and then we will move on further. So thank you very much for your patient listening. So hoping to have your association tomorrow also, the 5th day, and for the subsequent part 3 of the course, if we are not able to complete it this time, we will extend it, we will have part 3 of the course also. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Shri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.